Okay, picture this. You get to eat a massive Thanksgiving-style feast every single day. Sounds awesome, right? But here's the catch. That's it. That's the only thing you eat for the entire day. Today, we are diving deep into this pretty extreme trend, the one-meal-a-day diet.
So this whole one meal a day thing, yeah, you'll hear it called OMAD. Is it some kind of revolutionary health hack, a shortcut to feeling amazing, or is it actually a really risky path with some, serious downsides? That's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
All right, first things first, what exactly is this diet? And, why are so many people drawn to it? Let's get right into the promise behind this super simple but also super extreme idea.
So it's called OMAD, and the rules are, well, they're about as simple as it gets. You fast for 23 hours straight. Then you have 1 single hour to eat all, and I mean all of your calories for the entire day. That's it. It is literally the most extreme version of intermittent fasting you're going to find.
And the promises? Oh, they are big. People who are into this say it's not just about dropping pounds. They talk about making your life way simpler, getting this incredible mental focus, and even, hitting a total reset button on your body's metabolism.
Okay, but what's supposed to be happening inside your body during that giant 23-hour fast? Well, the science behind it tells this really interesting story about how our bodies react when food is scarce.
So, it all kicks off with something called a metabolic switch. First, your body just burns through all its easy-to-get-to sugar for energy. But once that's gone, it's forced to start burning your stored body fat for fuel instead. And then, something really cool is supposed to happen, a process called autophagy. You can basically think of it as your body's cellular cleanup crew, going in and recycling old, damaged parts to make everything run better.
But, and this is a big but, this is where the story starts to get a little complicated. Because when you actually dig into the scientific research, it's not so clear-cut. It's really more like a tale of two completely different stories.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got some studies on intermittent fasting that look pretty promising. They suggest, it can help with weight loss and maybe even improve things like insulin sensitivity. But then, on the other hand, you have different studies that raise some pretty serious red flags. We're talking links to increased LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, higher blood pressure, things you definitely don't want. And honestly, this kind of back and forth is super common in nutrition science. Because let's face it, it's almost impossible to perfectly track what people eat day in and day out.
And that conflict? It brings us to a really shocking number that grabbed a ton of headlines back in early 2024. And that number is 91%.
Right, so a study presented at an American Heart Association conference just sent this massive shockwave through the whole health and wellness world. It found that people who ate within an 8-hour window, and remember that's way less extreme than OMAD's 1-hour window, had a 91% higher risk of death from cardiovascular disease. I mean, even the lead author of the study said they were surprised by this.
Okay, now before anyone totally panics, we have to put this finding into perspective. It's super important. First, this is preliminary research. It hasn't even been published in a peer-reviewed journal yet. Second, it shows a correlation, an association, not that one thing caused the other. And maybe biggest of all, the data was based on people just trying to remember what they ate over 2 single days. So yeah, it's an alarming headline for sure, but it is a long, long way from being the final word.
So if we look beyond just that one headline-grabbing study, what are the other potential risks we need to be thinking about with a diet that's this extreme? Let's get into it.
I mean, let's be real. The day-to-day of trying to do OMAD can be incredibly tough. We're talking about feeling intensely hungry, being totally wiped out, dealing with brain fog. But it goes deeper than just feeling crummy. Trying to stuff an entire day's worth of calories into a single hour can be a nightmare for your digestion. Plus, it's incredibly hard to get all the vitamins and minerals you need that way. And for some people, this can trigger a really unhealthy cycle of binging and restriction, which is a serious concern.
And this is exactly why pretty much all health experts agree on this. OMAD is definitely not for everyone. In fact, for a lot of people, it's a hard no. We're talking about anyone who is pregnant or breastfeeding, kids and teenagers who are still growing, people who deal with diabetes or blood sugar problems, and, this is a big one, anyone with a history of eating disorders.
So when we put all of this together, what's the verdict? What's the final takeaway on eating just one giant meal a day?
Well, when you really lay it all out side by side, the picture gets pretty clear, doesn't it? A more typical 3-meal approach is just easier for most people to stick with. It's easier to get all your nutrients, and it fits in with, having a social life. OMAD, on the other hand, it's really hard to maintain. You're at a high risk for nutrient deficiencies. It can be pretty isolating, and honestly, the scientific backing is it's shaky.
And maybe this is the most important takeaway of all.
We just don't have the data on the long-term health effects of OMAD. It's a huge unknown. And look, while extreme diets are always going to grab headlines, the best, most reliable science keeps pointing us back to the same two things: consistency and balance. That's what really seems to matter.
Which really leaves us with one final and maybe most important question to think about. What if the healthiest diet isn't the most hardcore or extreme one? What if it's simply the one that you can actually sustain for a lifetime? Maybe the real secret isn't about extreme restriction at all, but about finding a balanced way of eating that you actually enjoy and can stick with for good.